Hey, what's up, everyone? Yeah, I guess GameboySage kind of had to say had to kind of give their own thoughts, if you will, on what's going on, in the comic. And you know how GameboySage is, they're basically still in a way a fan of the comic. They just don't understand why certain things are the way they are. Excuse me. Trying to get over the coffee. I just took some cough syrup. But can't understand certain things. I know that sounds strange, but it's true. Now, just like the previous video, I'll provide a link down below so you guys can read this yourselves, if you will. So you can read it yourselves. But yeah, Game Boy basically, has some thoughts on 245. Has some thoughts on Sonic 245, as well as questions about Bunnie Rabbot, or basically thoughts on Bunnie Rabbot. Bunnie Rabbot the Coolet, that is. But this is what they said 17 hours and 28 minutes ago. This is what they said 17 hours and 28 minutes ago. This is what they said. And I quote, and the title down there is going to be GameboySage GBS's thoughts on 245 and Bunnie's current situation. Or thoughts on 245 and Bunnie's current situation. Alright. This is what they said, and I quote what GBS, GameboySage, said. And I quote, "Does anyone remember 10 months ago when 235 came out? And I immediately said that Bunnie had run crying to her uncle to legionize herself. When I made that claim, I was pretty quickly hit by anger from people saying that there was no way Bunnie would do something so incredibly stupid with Uncle Chuck, Tails, and Rotor right next to her. That it would stand against everything her character stood for. And that most of all, there was no way Ian Flynn would screw up character development so badly as to accidentally de-roboticize her, treat her like a fool, and then instantly ship her off to get legionized. Okay, hold on. I had to let my dog out there. Okay, where was I? Continuing on. After all this time, we finally got a few teasers of Bunnie again in Sonic Universe 48, 49, 48, and 49. In 48, we saw her in the shadows with her signature cowboy hat and her cheek fuzz at her uncle's Legion base, which finally had her show up again and indeed show that she ran into her uncle. However, the real bombshell hit in 49, when the silhouette showed up again, only missing the cheek fuzz, not wearing the hat, and apparently having inverted knees. Sorry about that, inverted knees. While the uncle was talking about a family divided. Now, nothing is official yet, but it seems quite apparent that Bunnie reached the base in 48 and got herself legionized and Seganized during the events of 49, meaning that she's now an official slave of Robotnik and replaced parts of her body with robotic limbs. Excuse me. I have to coughing a little bit because I took that cough syrup. Since we haven't seen for sure what's going on, I won't go any further than this. But if she did legionize herself, then just keep in the back of your minds what I said about the freedom fighters essentially being killed and replaced by watered down, generic, inferior Sega knockoffs, and not simply looking different with new designs. I swear this entire quote-unquote happy 20th anniversary celebration for the comic just feels like one huge farce pretending to celebrate 20 years of great memories while essentially giving the middle finger and throwing out what made it so great for all those years in the first place. Excuse me. This leads to the big question now. Whether you love it or hate it, why is it that besides the game franchise, the only other Sonic franchise to exist today and to be in circulation is the Archie Sonic comic? Why is it that essentially every other franchise has disappeared into obscurity? And most of all, why is it that one of the newer franchise, Sonic X, followed the same pattern that the Archie franchise did, a show and comic, yet have the comic fizzle out and get cancelled after a mere 3 years? Well, I can answer that, and hopefully I'll try to. Okay, continuing on what they said, and I quote, "Something that also needs to be addressed for this is how game purists constantly bash the comic, saying it should be more like the games and that they wish it to focus more on the game characters and not on the comic originals. Which leads to another question. What is a Sonic game usually set up like? A typical Sonic game goes as follows. Robotnik starts trouble, Sonic fights him, Robotnik escapes, and you have gameplay for a few stages to once again reach another boss fight which allows Robotnik to escape, and rinse and repeat until a final fight that sends Robotnik packing till the next game." Excuse me. In short, the Sonic games are based almost entirely around gameplay, while using flat, two-dimensional stereotypical characters and a flimsy story to get you from stage to stage and a reason to fight the bosses. Now don't get me wrong, that's all you need for a video game. Okay, now don't get me wrong, that's all you really need for a video game, but what about all the fans that demand this be the norm for the shows and comics as well? People do realize that Sonic X is quite literally a Sonic video game turned into a show and comic, right? This is Sega Sonic and all his Sega buddies getting all the attention and fighting Robotnik in a robot enemy of the day formula. This went on for roughly 3 years, and during that time a comic for Sonic X came out as well, yet after only 3 years both the show and the comic ended, the show having an ending while the comic got cancelled. Why is it that the comic that so closely followed the games got cancelled after only 3 years, while the Archie's comic has been going on for 20 years and been expanding? The final thing to build up is how a current story in the Archie comics is actually a straight up video game plot. Sonic, Tails, and Amy are chasing after Robotnik, where they then have a boss battle to slow them down, and then once again catch up to him for another boss fight, with the cat and mouse setup reaching its conclusion soonish. One would imagine this would have most of the fans ecstatic and at the edge of the seats, right? Excuse me. A little better. Okay, continuing on. Continue on what GBS says, and I quote, "Actually, no. From what I've heard from other fans around, they're quite bored and disappointed by how this arc has been going on, and are actually very tired of team fighters. So what gives? Why is it that a plot that could have come directly out of the games, with only game characters, is proving to be such a flop of a story arc? To bring this whole thing together, it's as simple as once again saying that the entire Sonic franchise revolves around gameplay. If you take Sonic out of the games and go into television or comics, you essentially turn it into nothing but a Sonic game in which you can only watch the cutscenes but not actually play at all. And as I said before, the game characters simply aren't designed well enough to be entertaining on their own, and you need to add your own material to the franchise to fill the gaps to make the franchise work outside of the games. However, that once again brings up the fact that Sonic X had a few original characters, yet in the end, it got cancelled after 3 years. So what gives? Let's also remember that Sonic Underground essentially had 3 Sonics. So why is it that also was mostly ignored, while the Archer Sonic continued to do well? The answer is simple: the Freedom Fighters. Not only did you have a comic that made Robotnik already in charge, and thus change up what the regular formula of the franchise would be, but you had a group of very original, very reliable, very likable characters that weren't all that flat, that weren't all the flat. Ugh. Hold on for a second, folks. Hold on. I may have to do this in 2 parts, folks. I'm sorry. I had to let my dog in. But anyway, what was I? Oh yeah, continuing on what this said. You had a group of very original, very reliable, very likable characters that weren't all the flat stereotypes you found in the game. Not only that, excuse me. Excuse me again. Not only that, but instead of having solid gender roles and designs within the comic, like in the games, gender was almost entirely an afterthought. Well, in the games, the females are all either fangirls, they're there just to be cute, or they're to seduce people with their bodies as sex appeal and wear hearts on their clothes. You had females in the comic that were the leader of the group, the strong member of the group, that was the tough member punching and kicking all the badniks, or they're simply to be a member and help fight the good fight. Heck, they even managed to take a joke character, the cowardly Frenchman, and flesh out his character, turning him into an everyman and loving husband, essentially making him the bravest member of the team in many people's eyes. So why did I bring this all up? Because after 20 years of originality and complete gender equality, the comic is suddenly beginning to follow the patterns of all the other franchises that died off before it. Suddenly, it's been decided that all the females in the comic must be fully clothed due to how the games work. Essentially, we're now being told after 20 years that every single character is a gender first, and everything else pales in comparison and can only follow after that fact. Also, suddenly it's been decided that the very body designs of the characters have to conform to the games as well, with all the characters losing their cheek fuzz, even though Tails still has his, and all the bodies mutilated left and right to reach these new rules. In the end, this could Hold on.